Okay everybody, welcome back to TILP. My name is Caleb. I am here on the roof of our current Airbnb. I've got my coffee that I'm drinking through a yerba mate straw, maybe is a bit of a crime to some people. But we have been in Peru for close to 4 months now here in 2024. And I just wanted to spend a little bit of time now, since we will be leaving in a couple weeks, to talk about our experiences, what to expect, and what life is like for digital nomading in Peru in 2024. So I'm going to go through a couple of categories like cost of living, infrastructure, environment, and general quality of life expectations. So stick around for each of those categories if you want to know everything. The first one that I will mention is cost of living. Peru is a pretty affordable country overall. It's not the cheapest country in Latin America, but it is comparable to some of the cheapest countries. The cheaper countries in Latin America right now maybe would be Ecuador or Argentina, depending on what you're going to do, but Peru is still pretty affordable. For rent, depending on what you are looking for, you can find a 1 to 2 bedroom between $400 to $500 or $600. Obviously, this is going to depend on the area and the quality of the accommodation. We currently are in a kind of unknown area, and we have a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom for $600 a month off of Airbnb. If you want to see what that looks like, we have a couple of shorts on our channel where I go through the interior. Hostels or non-monthly stays are obviously going to be a little more expensive, maybe between $20 to $40 a night, once again, depending on where you are. The most expensive cities are going to be the capital, Lima, and Cusco by Machu Picchu, since these are definitely the most well-known and most tourist-heavy areas. If you are planning on going to some more rural or unknown towns, then you're going to find more affordable accommodations. As far as food, if you are going to cook at home, obviously that's going to be cheaper. Groceries for one person for a week might be around $50 to $75. Depending on what kind of stuff you're getting. Shaylin and I spend maybe about $100 or a little more than $100 per week for both of us for just the stuff that we're cooking at home. This isn't counting eating out. Eating out in Peru's got a pretty good food culture, especially in some of the major cities like Cusco or Lima. You're gonna find a lot of food options, and you can kind of go as cheap or as expensive as you want. You can get a really nice fancy dinner for, I don't know, $30, $40 a plate at a high-end restaurant in a very popular area, if this is what you're looking for and what you can afford. We usually don't go to those types of restaurants, maybe every once in a while. We try to frequent where the locals eat ourselves and try to keep our costs for eating out down. The cheapest that you can go for eating out is probably $4 to $6 per person, and this will still get you a pretty good meal. A lot of the places, especially along the coast, will have what is called a menu, and this is kind of like a special daily lunch thing where they do a 2-part lunch, like a kind of appetizer and a main course. The seafood one in this town where we are living right now, you can get a fresh 2-course seafood meal with maybe a drink for around $5. If you want to see what that looks like, we have a short on the channel covering that as well, if you want to see what the food actually looks like and what to expect. So you don't have to spend a lot of money if you're going to live in Peru. We usually rent through Airbnb, but if you know you're going to stay longer, you can look for rent signs around various towns where you're going to stay. And this might give you a better deal than off of Airbnb. But you might also have to pay some things that are not usually paid for on sites like Airbnb. For example, if you rent locally, they might expect you to pay utilities like internet or electricity, gas, things like this on your own, where if you rent from Airbnb, these are usually going to be covered by the host. So for convenience, we usually do Airbnb, and if you book a few months out in advance, you will usually have a few options, more options than if you're booking only 1 week advance notice. So we recommend that you book as far ahead as possible and be aware of the area. If you're only going to the most touristy areas, it's going to be more expensive inherently. Travel costs around the country, if you're just taking planes to different cities, like up north towards one of the coastal towns, I can't even remember one of the names, or if you're going to go down south towards Arequipa or Cusco, it's pretty cheap to fly domestically, maybe like $40, $50 per flight. The buses are also pretty affordable. Uber is an option, and they're usually more affordable than the taxis, the local taxis. Unfortunately, the taxis sometimes are not always 100% honest. You can take taxis and they're still relatively affordable, but Uber has been a better option for us. And if you are in a small town and you're just going a short distance, Peru is one of the places in Latin America where they use moto taxis very frequently as well. So if you are just going around your local town for a short distance, moto taxis are pretty affordable, and they'll get you there pretty quick. You can just hop in. They'll give you a honk as they pass you if they're available. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about is infrastructure. Internet connectivity, what kind of public transport there is, and what kind of amenities you can expect. So we have experienced surprisingly few connectivity issues. We both work online full-time, so internet and electricity is pretty important and crucial to what we do. Some of the other countries that we've been in, for example, Colombia and Ecuador, seemed, at least in our experience, to have more power outages and more internet issues where the internet was paused or off for some reason for some amount of hours. We haven't experienced that here in Peru. We have been to a few towns such as Lima, Ica, here on the coast, and we haven't really experienced any of this yet. Maybe a disconnect of the internet for half an hour, something like that, but nothing so major like hours and hours without electricity. There's, at least in the capital city, there is a kind of a pretty good transit system and some trams to get around. There's a train that goes through parts of the city, and there are buses pretty much leaving all the time to every single area. The buses are pretty convenient and pretty affordable depending on what you want to do. There's direct buses to a lot of the major cities, or there's a kind of cheaper bus, but I would recommend the direct bus because the cheaper buses where you can kind of stop and go, get off wherever you want, they can be really slow. For example, if Google Maps says it's a 4-hour drive, it's most likely going to be closer to 6 hours by bus. So definitely keep this in mind. There are a lot of major bus stations and they can get pretty hectic. We like to travel by bus a lot of the time if it's within reason, but if you've got the money and you're short on time, flights domestically, like I said, are pretty affordable. As far as amenities, not all of the stays are going to have things like washer and dryer or swimming pools or anything like that. If you're just going to a very touristy area, once again, and you're on vacation, you're probably not going to have to worry about that very much. But if you're slow traveling or digital nomading slightly longer term, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months here in Peru, then there are, even if your stay does not have a washer and dryer in it, there are what are called lavanderias, which just translates to wash places. But they're different than the ones that you see in perhaps like the United States, where you go in and wash your own clothes. Usually they will charge by kilogram. You drop off your clothes and then you would either come back some hours or the next day, and they will give you your clothes back washed and folded and all of that. So it's pretty convenient. You see these quite commonly around most of the major areas. Even the small towns will have them. We are in a really small municipality about an hour away from the capital, and even here there's a couple of lavanderias that we use to wash our clothes, since this particular stay does not have a washer and dryer. So it's a pretty good country as far as infrastructure, where we can tell, at least for the most part. The next thing I want to talk about is destinations and environment here in Peru. What kind of environment and landscapes and destinations should you expect? Peru kind of has 3 main areas or climates. You've got some places up north and towards the center, like the Amazon. So you have the Amazon basin of Peru. You have the high Andes, which are still pretty tropical, but can get cold if you go up high enough. And then pretty much the entirety of Peru's coast is desert. So those are the 3 environments you're going to get. It's actually a pretty good variety, which is kind of cool. You can go to places like Ica or Arequipa and see some really big sand dunes. We have some videos of that on our channel. And if you go to the mountains like Cusco or I think it's Huacachina, you can get some colder temperatures, some mountains, and kind of that more mountainous vibe. Or you can go to the main city in the Amazon, of which I'm forgetting right now. It starts with an I, but there you can definitely get the Amazon feel. It's going to be very hot, very humid. There's going to be a lot of bugs and mosquitoes in the Amazons, so keep that in mind if you're going to go there, but you can definitely get some cool experiences. The mountains, there's some really cool peaks if you're into hiking, climbing, and you can deal with a bit of colder weather. There are some kind of tropical mountain cities like Tarapoto up north, which is a pretty cool place, just kind of a small mountain town. And then you can kind of escape some of the summer heat if you're coming in the summer. As far as climate also, I want to mention that the winters, you can kind of see, it's the winter here now when we are here. And it's very gray most of the time, especially on the coast, like Lima or anywhere up and down the coast. So it's kind of cold, maybe between 15 to 20 degrees most days, and there's not a lot of sun. So if you are somebody that likes the sun, I highly suggest you come in winter, because it can get a little depressing. I highly suggest you come in the summer. It can get a little bit depressing in the winter. There are some really cool spots to visit. Obviously, the most noticeable and notable place in Peru is Machu Picchu. This is a really well-known site, world famous, and is definitely worth seeing if you come to Peru. It's a pretty amazing place. Cusco is a really cool city. There are some really large sand dunes or desert scapes in places like Ica or Paracas. And you can do some mountain stuff. Like I said, there's a couple of really notable peaks if you're into climbing. And there is, of course, Lake Titicaca in the very south along the Peruvian-Bolivian border, which is the largest freshwater navigable lake in the world. There's some really cool stuff there, a lot of history, and you can see some really old style like floating villages, which are really cool to see and take pictures of. So there's tons of destinations and quite a few different climates to see if you're coming to Peru. So if you're gonna stay here for a few months, it'll give you the opportunity to see a few different cities and go to several different climates within one country. The next thing and last thing that I want to talk about is generally the quality of life. So it's not a super rich country. It's still a developing country. If you have the money, can live pretty well, though you can live quite affordably like we do, and still have a pretty good quality of life. We eat out a couple of times a week, live in 2 to 3 bedroom apartments for, like I said at the beginning, maybe $500 a month. And it feels safe for the most part, though like any country in Latin America, I highly suggest you just stay aware of your surroundings. Never let your guard down, especially if you're someone that likes to go out and kind of enjoy the nightlife, maybe go to a bar, have some drinks, have some friends with you or people that you really trust. Don't go walking alone at night by yourself. One thing that we kind of say to ourselves, Shaylin and I, is to, sounds odd, but look poor and pissed off. This will kind of make you less of a target sometimes, since unless you look mestizo, you're probably going to stand out here in Peru. The vast majority of the population looks quite similar and refers to themselves as a bit of a mestizo, or kind of traditional look, a Peruvian look. If you come here, you'll see what most of the people look like. A little bit shorter, very dark hair, specific facial features. So if you're from a European or Northern American country, you're going to stand out and you can be a target. I would avoid wearing nice things around, or just dressing very fancy, or flaunting jewelry, watches, cameras, expensive cell phones. If you're in a super touristy place like Kennedy Park in Lima, or some places in Cusco, you might be okay, but at the same time, those are places where people like pickpockets might be most prevalent, because they are aware that that's where the tourists are. So as long as you stay aware of your surroundings, you should be safe. There's not a very high incident of violent crimes. Most of the time it's just kind of petty theft, people stealing bags, pickpocketing, maybe some small-time robberies, something like that. But just be aware and try to stay around people for the most part, or if you're coming with a tour group, that would definitely make it safer. Ease and convenience. It's a pretty convenient country to live in the way where most amenities are going to be within walking distance. There's a lot of small family mom and pop stores, or even small chain stores like Tambo or Oxo, that are all over most of the cities. Even the small cities, you're probably going to find some kind of grocery store where you can find most of what you need, like vegetables, fruit, some meat, maybe some basic toiletries, within a couple of blocks. So you don't need a car to stay here in Peru. We haven't had a car the entire time. We haven't rented a car. And at most, we maybe need an Uber or a moto taxi to go 20 minutes away if we're perhaps going into a different town or a different area. But things like what I mentioned before, lavanderias, or places to wash clothes, places to buy groceries, or even pharmacies are virtually everywhere on every block. And the pharmacies, a lot of them will allow you to upload or recharge your SIM cards if you get a local SIM card. So this is a convenient thing as well. They don't always advertise this either, but if you have a South American SIM card like Movistar or Claro, most of the time a lot of the pharmacies will allow you to recharge your phone, your data there, which is pretty convenient. Some things to look out for. In the touristy areas, people might try to scam you. So do some research, watch videos, things like this, before you go to those areas, and be aware of what kind of scams to expect. Especially if you go to some place like Machu Picchu, they're going to really try to sell you a lot of tours or small knickknacks, different things. You don't have to accept it. Same with the really touristy areas in the capital, Lima, like Larcomar Mall or Kennedy Park. There's going to be a lot of people trying to sell you things, or maybe even try to get you to come with them somewhere. Don't do this. Just mind your own business. Keep to yourself a little bit. You can take pictures and all that, but just be aware that a lot of people are just trying to make a quick dollar, a quick buck, and they might be willing to scam you for it. Also, like I said, some of the taxi drivers might not be as honest as they should be. That's why we have chosen the majority of the time to use Uber, because the price is already set and you can see on maps where you're going, all of that sort of thing. Stay safe, especially if you are going to ride public buses. This goes for pretty much anywhere in Latin America, but keep your bags on you and with you at all times. People will take your bags if you give them the opportunity, so just be careful with that. Same in like public bus stations or other various areas. Don't leave your bag anywhere. Try to keep all of your stuff on you all the time, just to prevent any sort of accidents from happening. Besides that, the majority of people we've met here in Peru have been really helpful, really nice. It's a really beautiful country full of awesome food, awesome destinations, and it's really worthwhile. It's affordable, there's plenty of accommodation, and in 2024, it is definitely a place in Latin America worth visiting, especially if you like surfing, mountains, ruins, history, and traditional food. So, Peru for digital nomads in 2024, I give a 7.5 out of 10. Not the best country we have ever been to, but it is definitely a highly rated country in our opinion and worth seeing overall. Till next time, be sure to like and subscribe if you got anything out of this video. We try to make authentic and realistic videos for slow travelers and other digital nomads about all the places we go. So it really helps us out if you hit that like button. Till next time, guys. Bye.